Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're doing something, well, maybe a little unexpected. We're taking a really unique look at the concave mirror market.
Mm-hmm. Sounds specific.
It does, but we've got our hands on this fascinating report, the Concave Mirror Market Report 2025, and our mission really is to cut through all the numbers.
Get to the core insights.
Exactly. Pull out the most important bits for you. We're talking sales revenue growth, regional performance, even country level stuff. Looking back to 2021 and get this, projecting all the way out to 2033.
And it might sound incredibly niche, concave mirrors, but digging into specific market reports like this one, it's actually so valuable.
Right. How so?
Well, it gives you this incredibly precise snapshot, almost like a magnifying glass on global economic trends. It really highlights where significant growth is actually happening and, which parts of the world are driving things.
So it's a way to understand the bigger picture through this very specific lens.
Precisely. It helps you see the underlying currents of the global economy.
Okay, good point. And just quickly, before we dive into the numbers, maybe we should clarify what we mean by concave mirrors.
Get an idea.
Because it's not just, the mirror you might use for shaving or makeup.
Definitely not.
These are really critical components in, well, all sorts of things. High-precision medical devices like ophthalmoscopes for looking into eyes.
Right. Telescopes, too, obviously.
Powerful telescopes, yeah. Advanced car headlights, even solar energy concentrators, lots of industrial applications.
So a really diverse range of uses.
Exactly. And understanding that helps explain why this market shows such, well, surprising and consistent growth. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start with the big picture, the global view, before we zero in on a region. So globally, the concave mirror market back in 2021, it actually recorded sales revenue of $2,093.12 million US dollars.
So just shy of $2.1 billion.
Right. But here's where it gets interesting. By 2025, that number is expected to jump quite a bit to $2,652.5 million.
Okay.
And then looking even further out to 2033, the projection is $4,259.69 million.
Wow, so that's basically doubling over about, 12 years?
Pretty much, yeah.
What's truly fascinating there, I think, is just how consistent and robust that expansion looks. We're looking at a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR of 6.1% for the global market overall.
6.1%.
Yeah, and that's not just, a quick spike. It suggests a steady, almost foundational expansion. That kind of growth over more than a decade points to, well, a really healthy and stable market environment worldwide.
Okay, so not just a temporary thing. That makes sense. Right, let's pivot now. Let's highlight some of the really high-growth emerging markets from this report, and we have to start with Africa. It seems to be a real breakout star here.
Absolutely.
This region shows the strongest CAGR across all regions in the data, an impressive 8.408%.
8.4%. That's significant.
It really is. In 2021, Africa's market value was $83.725 million. That's set to rise to $121.168 million in 2025, and then a really big jump to $231.145 million by 2033.
That level of sustained high growth in Africa is, well, it's genuinely eye-opening, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially for this kind of market. It really is. And if we connect that to the bigger picture, it just shows substantial emerging market momentum. There's specific things happening there. If you look at individual countries, Nigeria, for example, it shows an incredible 9% CAGR.
9%. Wow, the highest in the whole report.
The highest reported in this data set, yeah. Its revenues are projected to surge from, $38.848 million in 2021, all the way to $114.007 million in 2033.
So almost tripling.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
That kind of growth isn't just numbers on a page. It signals a market really taking off. It could indicate maybe rapid industrialization or a growing automotive sector, perhaps expansion of medical infrastructure there.
Makes sense.
And South Africa isn't far behind either. A strong 8.761% CAGR, going from about $30 million in 2021 to nearly $88 million projected for 2033.
Really powerful signals of economic development coming out of Africa then. Okay, so from Africa's remarkable surge, the data takes us to another region showing strong performance, the Middle East.
Right.
Also posting a really robust CAGR of 6.707%.
Slightly lower than Africa, but still well above the global average.
Exactly. Its market was valued at $87.911 million in 2021. That rises to $114.313 million in 2025 and projected to hit $192.15 million by 2033. What do you think is driving that expansion in the Middle East?
Well, within the Middle East, you see similar strong growth in key economies. Saudi Arabia really stands out, a
Right.
7.257% CAGR, projected to grow from about $31 million in 2021 to over $72 million by 2033.
Okay.
And the UAE is also a strong contributor here, a 7.122% CAGR, increasing its market from roughly $13.6 million in 2021 to over $31.5 million in 2033.
So significant growth there, too.
Yeah, and it suggests perhaps significant investments in industries beyond just oil and gas, things like healthcare, maybe tourism infrastructure, advanced manufacturing. All those would need components like concave mirrors.
That makes sense. Diversification efforts playing out.
Seems likely.
All right, now from the Middle East, let's shift to Asia Pacific, a region that, well, in so many markets, is just a global powerhouse.
Absolutely. The engine room for a lot of growth.
For concave mirrors, Asia Pacific shows an overall CAGR of 6.467%, so slightly above that global average we talked about.
So very healthy.
Definitely. And the revenue figures are substantial, $439.555 million back in 2021, growing to $567.635 million in 2025, and projected to nearly double to $937.133 million by 2033. What's the story within that big number? Is this just volume or?
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, I think. Seeing these regional powerhouses driving not just the sheer volume, but also significant percentage growth. China, as you'd expect, is a huge contributor. Revenues projected from about $178.5 million in 2021 to nearly $375 million in 2033. That's a 6.368% CAGR.
Higher than China's rate?
Yeah. Moving from about $44 million in 2021 to over $102 million projected for 2033. And Taiwan is another high flyer, a 7.312% CAGR, going from roughly $19 million in 2021 to almost $46 million by 2033.
So quite dynamic within the region.
Very. It's fascinating. It suggests that while China is, of course, a massive market, maybe India and Taiwan are experiencing faster adoption or finding newer applications for these mirrors, perhaps in their growing tech and manufacturing sectors.
Could be. Definitely something to watch. Okay, so while these emerging markets are showing really explosive growth, it's just as important to look at the steady engines, right? The established players.
The bedrock markets.
Let's turn to North America. This market accounted for $849.806 million in 2021. Big number.
Largest regional market by value.
Yeah. Estimated to hit $1,063.24 million in 2025 and climbing to $1,670.08 million by 2033. The CAGR there is 5.807%.
Slightly below the global average, but still very solid, consistent growth.
So what's the story there? Is it just continued demand in existing areas?
Well, North America's growth, while maybe not as flashy percentage-wise as some emerging markets, it's incredibly consistent, steady. The United States is still the largest single contributor by far, projected to go from about $681 million in 2021 to almost $1.3 billion by 2033. That's a 5.485% CAGR. So that signifies continued demand in those big established industries, automotive, aerospace, medical devices.
The usual suspects.
Pretty much. But interestingly, while Canada is growing at a solid 6.573% CAGR, Mexico actually boasts the highest North American CAGR, 7.399%.
Oh, really? Higher than Canada and the U.S. rate?
Yep. Projecting from about $84.5 million in 2021 to $190 million by 2033.
Huh. Why might that be?
Mexico's higher growth rate, well, it could be indicative of increased manufacturing output, maybe nearshoring trends playing a role, driving demand for these kinds of components.
That makes sense. A lot of manufacturing has shifted there.
It has.
Okay, let's cross the Atlantic to Europe. Here, the picture seems a bit more varied, a story of steady giants, but also some surprising surges.
Yeah, Europe's interesting.
The overall European market stood at $537.932 million in 2021. Expected to rise to $669.899 million in 2025, and projected to reach $1,043.62 million by 2033. That reflects a CAGR of 5.698%.
Again, just under the global average, similar to North America overall. But this really raises an important question, I think. What specific factors are driving such different growth rates within Europe?
Right. Like Germany.
Yeah, Germany's a huge market, obviously, going from about $132 million in 2021 to $250 million by 2033, a 5.534% CAGR. Its stability probably comes from that strong industrial base.
Makes sense. But then you mentioned variation.
Well, look at the category labeled Rest of Europe in the data. It shows surprisingly high growth and at 8.087% CAGR.
8%. That's higher than most countries.
Exactly. Going from about $75 million in 2021 to an impressive $186 million projected for 2033.
What could be behind that?
It could indicate maybe the adoption of new high-demand applications in those countries, or perhaps economic diversification efforts in smaller, less historically dominant European economies.
Interesting thought.
But then conversely, you have some very mature markets like Switzerland and Luxembourg, showing notably lower CGRs. Switzerland's at 3.892%, Luxembourg 3.706%.
Much lower.
Yeah, that lower growth might suggest maybe market saturation in certain applications, or perhaps a shift in manufacturing focus within those specific countries.
So a really mixed bag across Europe.
Definitely.
Okay, finally, let's cast our gaze south to South America. Their market was at $94.19 million back in 2021, increasing to $116.247 million in 2025, and projected to reach $185.563 million by 2033. That's growing at a 6.02% CAGR.
So pretty much right on the global average. Healthy growth.
And who's the regional standout there?
Brazil remains the key player in South America. It's showing a healthy 6.391% CAGR, going from about $47 million in 2021 to projected $95.4 million by 2033.
Okay, aligning with Brazil's general economic role in the region.
Exactly. It's interesting to note, though, the rest of South America category shows a relatively lower CAGR, just 1.663%.
Oh, that's quite low compared to Brazil.
It is. It suggests maybe more concentrated growth within specific, larger economies, like Brazil, rather than a widespread adoption across all the smaller markets in the region.
Why might that be? Infrastructure.
Could be. Perhaps infrastructure limitations, or maybe less diversified industrial bases in some of those other countries.
Got it. Okay, we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of numbers. So let's try to synthesize this. What does it all mean when we bring all these details together? What's the big takeaway for you, our listener?
Yeah, stepping back, the overarching conclusion seems pretty clear. The global concave mirror market is experiencing, well, healthy, widespread, and actually remarkably consistent growth.
Consistent seems to be the key word.
It really does. And we see this distinct trend. Stronger momentum, higher percentage increases in those emerging economies. Africa, Asia-Pacific, the Middle East. That suggests things like rapid industrialization, new applications taking hold.
Right.
But at the same time, the established markets, North America and Europe, they're also continuing to show steady, consistent expansion, just maybe at a slightly slower pace.
So growth everywhere, but faster in some places than others.
Exactly. It paints a picture of a diverse, yet uniformly positive global market trend for these mirrors. It really highlights where economic activity is surging versus where it's maybe consolidating or growing more steadily.
And it's a testament, really, to how essential these components are in a surprisingly wide range of technologies and industries all over the world.
Absolutely.
Well, this deep dive, hopefully, has given you a shortcut to being really well informed about the specific market, going beyond just headlines to, dig into the actual numbers and regional differences. It's just fascinating how a seemingly niche product can reveal so much about global economic currents.
It really is. And maybe to leave you with a final thought to chew on,
Okay.
based on everything we've discussed, this consistent growth, think about what specific new applications or maybe evolving industries might be popping up to drive this, especially in those high-growth regions we talked about. What might this quiet surge in demand for something like concave mirrors tell you about broader shifts happening worldwide that maybe aren't so obvious? Things like perhaps advanced robotics, specialized optics for AR or VR, maybe next-generation energy solutions.
That's a great question. What underlying tech shifts are these numbers hinting at?
Exactly. Something to mull over.
Definitely food for thought. Thank you for joining us on this exploration today. We really encourage you to continue your own deep dives into the fascinating world of market insights.